Good morning. This is Happy Joseph's Journey, and we are here today with our virtual education series. And today's subject is going to be types of diplomas. We have our speaker, Miss Allison Gauld from the Tennessee Department of Education. Our agenda for today, we will have our welcome, the introduction of our board of directors, introduction of our speaker, and types of diplomas, announcements, followed by our closing. So the mission of Happy Joseph's Journey is that we are a community of autism advocates that aim to offer inclusive opportunities to educate, empower, enrich, and celebrate individuals on the spectrum, their families, and communities. The introduction of our board of directors. I am LaTanya Winfrey. I'm the president. Allison Simpson, who is our vice president. Ophelia Childress, our secretary. Labrina Winfrey, our treasurer. James Morris, our marketing director. Spencer Rollins, our philanthropy ambassador, and Andre Waller, our special events coordinator. And before we get into and deep dive into the types of diplomas, we thank you for your support. And we ask that you follow us by subscribing to our YouTube channel. So if you are here with us now on YouTube, you can press that red subscribe button so you will see all of the other information that we provide for our families. Join us on Facebook at Happy Joseph's Journey. Our Instagram is at Joseph's Journey. Our Twitter is Happy Joseph's Joe 1. And our website is josephshappy.com. Today, we have an amazing presenter that's going to bring you all the information you need. Her name is Allison Gauld from the Tennessee Department of Education, Low Incidence and Autism Coordinator for Special Populations. She taught special education for children with low incidence disabilities within the public schools for over 20 years. At the department, Allison has been involved in the policy, guidance, and training, including instructionally appropriate IEPs, instructional strategies, behavior, occupational diploma, alternate academic diploma, transition, supported decision-making, alternate assessment, and teaching all students, TAS. Allison's work reflects her strong belief that all students can and will achieve. She has a BA in special education and an MA in educational leadership from Arizona State University. We are so grateful that Allison Gauld is able to join us today for this important information that I have been blasting all over social media because I am in that current process right now. Allison, we thank you for being here today. And I will go ahead. I think my screen is down. You should be able to share your screen. And you can begin your presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for that introduction. LaTanya, just to check, you are seeing my screen, correct?
Yes, I am.
Okay, perfect. Well, welcome all of you. Hopefully this is a time that, while it's always hard and nerve-wracking when our students get older, it's also a time of celebration because your students are transitioning from being the children that you need to care for to the children you get to care about the world with. You get to engage differently and really raise young adults. And so hopefully this becomes an exciting time, and this information adds just that little bit of information you need to continue that journey. So I'm going to go over the 4 diplomas. I'm going to talk a lot and fast to make sure I get a lot of information in, but truly feel free to submit questions. Let us know what you want to know because I'm here to support you in any way that I can. So with that, let's just go ahead and dig in. I do work for the Tennessee Department of Education. These are the 3 pillars of our strategic plan, Best for All. It's really about students being ready, and that's what we're going to talk about today, but also just their academics that they need for readiness, as well as having quality educators. But today we're really focusing on that school is an adult prep program. So what does that school experience look like for the student in order to prepare them for that adulthood? And that's really why we have 4 diplomas. So this is just another way of saying our strategic plan, because I believe in differentiating and providing different opportunities for people to access information. So today I'm really hoping to inform all of you about the 4 diploma options and what that looks like in implementation. So this all comes out of high school policy. So this is on the State Board of Education policy site. Little known fact is that the Department of Education is not the policy making body. Policies come to us either through the state legislators, the federal government, or through the State Board of Education. Those are all separate entities, and they are separate from the Department of Education. We provide the guidance and support to enact laws, rules, and policies. So this policy is from the State Board of Education. I did put the link on here, and I will make sure to send this to LaTanya as well, and then that link will be active. So really and truly, the 4 diploma options is something I'm very passionate about and very proud of Tennessee, because what it is a way to recognize the strengths of all of our students and understand that every single individual in Tennessee has value in our community, and we need to empower them with the opportunity to pursue their best adult life. And so I'm really passionate about this. So here's a quick overview of what we're going to talk about today. So these are the 4 diplomas, and really they're listed kind of in the way we should be thinking about them whenever we're making decisions. We should assume all students are regular education students, that all students are going to earn that regular education diploma. We should believe that with all of our hearts and minds until we have data that says otherwise. So that is that first one we should consider, and then we really should work through in this way. It's much like that least restrictive environment idea. So in this case, the regular diploma opens the most doors. So it's the least restrictive to you as an adult. And then it gets more restrictive on what your opportunities are as we work down. So hopefully that will help already frame for you these 4 diplomas. Really important things I want to point out on this chart. And again, we're going to dig into each one. But if you notice the regular diploma where it says terminal, yes, that means it terminates IDEA rights, that's special education law. So in the law, it says that students are students with a disability and eligible for services through age 21 or until they receive a regular diploma. So those are the 2 markers that tell us when the student is no longer a student. They no longer qualify under IDEA, but then in fact will actually need to look at adult services. And so it's just really important to know that regular education diploma terminates IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Act, rights. That's a good thing. It's saying that they're ready when they get that. But it's also part of why I'm so passionate about having multiple diplomas. It's really important that a student earns their diploma and is not given a diploma. When they are given a diploma, it is misleading to you as families. It is misleading most of all to that individual that they're ready for something they aren't. So we need to make sure they've earned it. I know that we all want all of our students to earn the regular diploma and to be able to do that. And we think if we just modify enough, they can get it. Getting it and earning it are 2 very different things. Really focus on that idea of earning, but there's also consequences, right? So if we give them a diploma, we might have ended their services earlier than we should have. So it's just something I want to point out there and plant as a seed as we think, because there's the emotional part of us that wants to make a decision. It's valid, it's real, that's what makes us human. But then there's thinking about what that looks like for the rest of their life and understanding what those decisions are. That's what helps us make better decisions. And so I'm just here to inform, not to place any value on it, but I just want to make sure you know that difference. So let's look at each one. So the regular diploma, this is the one we traditionally think of as high school diploma, right? When we say, do you have a high school diploma? We're asking about this regular diploma. It should be the one we consider for all students, and we believe all students will get until we have really substantial data to say otherwise. And when I say that, that shouldn't be too early in a child's career. We have a lot of time to get there. So really, I'm thinking this is a later decision on whether or not they're not going to earn the regular diploma, as in maybe middle school, early high school. The requirements, though, for this diploma by state rule is 22 credits. Some of you may be in districts that require more than 22 credits. The district is allowed to require more, but the state policy is 22 credits. That's going to be important later, so I just want to point that out. Those credits are outlined as to what they need to be, 4 math, 4 English, 3 lab science. So it's got all the requirements laid out, but I just want to make sure you know what that is. Students are also required to take the ACT. They don't have to achieve any certain score. So if their score is a lower score, that's fine. They took it. They did what they needed to do. And then they need to pass the civics test. So that rule came from our state legislators. I think it's been added to our high school policy most recently. So I think in your link, you'll see it. It took a little gap right between the legislator and the state board to adopt it. But all students must also pass the civics test. That's at 80%. So what does it mean if a student gets a regular diploma, and why do I call it least restrictive? It means they could attend any college, 2 4-year community college or university. Granted, they all have acceptance rules, right? And some of them are more competitive than others, but they absolutely are eligible to apply. They're eligible for any of the TCATs, the Tennessee Centers for Applied Technology. They're eligible for any trade school, any job that says high school diploma required. This is really least restrictive because all the possibilities are available. So what does it look like for another diploma? So the alternate academic diploma is actually our newest diploma. I'm super excited this month because it has been in place exactly 4 years. This is our first cohort of students to graduate with the alternate academic diploma. And I will tell you already the stories of how this has impacted the students and their families, but even their schools, is absolutely just heartwarming. I, as part of teaching all students, am engaging with 18 high schools right now, and it'll be 29 high schools next year on some pretty intensive work. And just the difference in how we're seeing the value of each and every member of our community through the work of this alternate academic diploma tells me that we're on the right track with this work. It really is what it says it is. It's an academic diploma. It's a diploma that's newest because the Every Student Succeeds Act, it was formerly known as No Child Left Behind, right? It's one of the quirks about the federal government. A few years ago, all the kids were left behind. Now they're all successful. But seriously, the Every Student Succeeds Act is really our elementary and secondary schools act. As they renew it, they give it new names, but it's really what grounds the fact that we have public education available to all students for our kindergarten through 12th graders in the United States. It's one of the hallmarks of who we are. Began with Thomas Paine and our founding fathers, really under the idea that if we're all educated, we're all empowered. Power meaning that you have the ability to act. And of course, over history, what that action is has changed, but that's what is a big commitment here in the alternate academic diploma, is that all students are empowered with academics. And so the Every Student Succeeds Act said, you know what? Some of our students that are empowered, they're not going to earn that regular diploma because they have a disability that prevents them from earning it. But they are doing really incredible work every single day. They are learning, they are growing, they are thriving, their teams are doing great work. We need to recognize it. And so they gave states the option to have this diploma. Tennessee was one of the very first to do so, and I'm very proud of Tennessee for it, because it meant that we were able to get students into this process right away. But the policy's got a lot of rules around it, right? So they don't want us to just give away diplomas. Again, they need to be earned. And the policies on this say that it must be standards-based. So it's got to be focused on English language arts, math, science, and social studies, really aligned to the standards that all of their peers are engaged in. but with some differences of the modifications necessary. It's got to be aligned to your requirements for the regular diploma. This is why I said that 22 credits is really important. Our state requirements for the regular diploma is 22 credits. So the requirements for the alternate academic diploma are 22 credits. That's it. If you have a district that requires more credits, the alternate academic diploma is still at 22 because that is the state requirement. So that's just important to understand where that number came from. And then it says obtained within the same time period as their peers in order to count in their graduation rate. So this is probably the most misunderstood clause. It doesn't mean that students are limited in their opportunity to get it, right? They're able to stay through age 21. If it takes them 5, 6, 7, 8 years to get it, that's just fine. For the school to count it in their graduation rate, they must have it completed within that 4 years. But that's fine. It's both ways, it's a value to the student. It's just so that schools understand the importance of planning thoughtfully ahead of time. So here's the ultimate requirements for the alternate academic diploma. They first and foremost must be a student that's eligible for alternate assessments. The eligibility requirement for alternate assessments is that the student has the most significant cognitive disability, that they are engaged in learning aligned to but derived from standards, meaning that they need highly modified standards instruction, and that they also need other substantial individualized supports in order to learn, generalize, and use information. So really the alternate assessment is expected to be reserved for our students in the lowest 1%. It's really specifically designed for them to have equitable access to instruction and equitable access to show us their knowledge and skills, but it is highly modified. So that tells you who this diploma is for. And right there, you should already know, like some of your students where you're saying, no, they don't have a cognitive disability, right? Because we know about 78% of our individuals with autism do not have a cognitive disability at all. So, for a lot of our families, this isn't an option. And that's really important for us to know. But for those for whom this is an option, it's one to consider because it does still ground your student in the academics, just like those who don't have a cognitive disability are receiving. I am going to jump to the bottom bullet point here real quick. So I told you the 22 credits, but I also said that regular diploma requires ACT and we have to align to the regular diploma. Well, we do not have an alternate ACT, nor am I in any shape to make an alternate ACT. So what we said, what is an ACT for? The ACT is intended to support the high school student in figuring out what are their best next steps. Should you be looking at a 2-year college, 4-year college, TCAT, trade school? It's to help them make good decisions about what's next. So how do we do that for our students with significant cognitive disabilities? We need to do better transition assessments. So there are 2 areas of transition assessment required by federal law. That is that all students with a disability have goals in education and training, and they have goals in employment. But if a student wants to earn the alternate academic diploma, they must also have solid transition assessments in independent living and community involvement. Why? These are the students with most complex needs. They need the most comprehensive plan. So that is our replacement for ACT. They do also need to pass the civics test, but that can be modified, and we have a modified civics test available on our website on the alternate assessment page. So know that we've given an example of that. Those middle two bullets about the student must be receiving their IEP and have satisfactory records of conduct. That's really saying the student must be enrolled in the school. So if a student's in a home school or private school, that's not enrolled in school, right? And they must have an active IEP, meaning that their IEP must not displace their opportunities for instruction. Their instruction should not displace their IEP. Both should be happening. So it's really just a protection. So what are the possibilities if a student gets an alternate academic diploma? Well, one of the number one best thing we can do for students to have success after high school and employment is for them to have paid employment in high school. That's number one. But number two is kind of tied with a few things. And one of those is participating in inclusive higher ed. We're very lucky in Tennessee. We have a lot of inclusive higher ed programs, especially given our population size. So that is Tiger Life at University of Memphis, Edge at Union University, Next Steps at Vanderbilt, Ideal at Lipscomb, Future at UTK, and Access at ETSU. These are programs at the college specifically for individuals with cognitive disabilities. You do not need to have a regular diploma to participate. But across our state, we have about 90 seats, even though we have so many programs in comparison to other states. 90 is not a lot at all. So it's highly competitive. But here's what we know. Students who earn the alternate academic diploma have really focused in on academic instruction, which means they've learned how to apply new knowledge, how to derive conclusions, how to debate or refuse or rebut an opinion, how to think about something that they learned in one place and use it in another. These are the skills that set them up for success and make them highly competitive for those seats in that program. Project Search is another great program we have. I think we right now have about 18 Project Search sites in our state. Again, we're at a higher number given our population here in Tennessee, but it's still highly competitive. Project Search is a employment training program that happens on site with an employer. Individuals will have 4 to 6 different internship rotations engaging in that work training. The employment rate is around, I think, 92% for graduates from either Project Search or Inclusive Higher Ed. So it tells you it's a pretty good program, highly competitive. These are students that are going to be competitive for those seats. And that's true for other employment and training programs. So I'm here talking to you all today, but I talk to schools, I talk to districts, I talk to policymakers, but I also talk to our other adult wraparound service agencies, Voc Rehab, DID, ECF Choices. They all know about this diploma and they know these are individuals that are ready to take advantage of their programs. So we know there's wait lists. But these are individuals who are competitive and ready. So what does the AA do? It shows you're ready. You're ready now to take advantage of all these really strong programs. So this is just a quick summary of everything. There are credit requirements, 22 credits. We do have course requirements for the AAD classes that help define what that looks like for our students earning the AAD, because remember, this is our students with significant cognitive disabilities. But they are aligned to standards, they are rigorous, and they really do have that strong belief that all students can and will learn. Then for the civics test, they have to pass. But again, for AAD, you can use your modifications. And then there's the ACT, and for AAD, it's the transition assessment. So the occupational diploma. This one's been around for a while. You guys have probably heard about this one. This should be the next one considered. So if it's up, they're not going to earn the regular diploma. AAD, they're not going to earn it, or it's not the right one. Or maybe they earned it in the first 4 years of high school, but they're going to continue. Now we can focus on the occupational diploma. It's exactly what it says it is. It's focused on getting them ready for work. This actually came from a family, and I've had the luxury of getting to know this family. They're amazing. They took it to their legislator and made it a law. And I think that's important for you to know, is this was done with a specific individual and her peers in mind. But it's about being ready for work. You can see the requirements here don't have any credits. There's not a credit requirement. But in order to make sure we don't default or take the easy road out on students, you may not make this decision prior to the end of 10th grade. So we have to be giving it a really good go for at least half of high school before we make this decision. So at the end of 10th grade, you can make a decision that perhaps the occupational diploma is more appropriate. It's available to students with an IEP, regardless of what assessment they take, EOC or alternate assessment. But really and truly, how we know they made it is through the skills, knowledge, and experience mastery assessment. It's an employment ready assessment. It's an observation tool. It shows that students truly are ready for work, that they know they need to come. They have the skills of following a schedule, being able to ask for help, taking redirection, things like that. Again, can't make this decision too early. Sounds like a good thing, but it's really important we hold students to the opportunity to learn and be challenged like their peers in academics, because as I said, that's where you learn a lot about thinking, decision-making, and problem solving. So truly part of this is they have to do the skills, knowledge, and experience mastery assessment. They have to show that they can do the required skills. These are things like showing up, I think we all know you don't keep a job if you don't show up. So it's showing up to school, showing up to work, complying with basic safety. That's fire drills, things like that. So we know that you can follow those basic safety procedures in a building. And then they have to get 8 out of 10 critical skills. That's following common directions or routines, being able to complete a project in an adequate amount of time, asking for help. Those are the kinds of skills. And they have to have 2 years of work experience. The work is specifically not defined on purpose. Right now, the number one leading indicator of how many employment opportunities a student will have is based on their zip code. I have a problem with zip code ever defining somebody's life. So it was really important we did not put such constraints on this that if you lived in an area with little industry or little employment opportunities, that you were prohibited from getting this diploma. So we were very, very careful to not define work. That also allows for flexibilities for some of our students, especially right now. We're very hyper aware of some of the medical risks or other physical strains on students. So work is not defined. It just says you need to do work. We do ask that it be satisfying. It's aligned to what the student wants to do or thinks they want to do. Keep in mind, these are 17, 18-year-olds. I don't know about you, but when I was 17, I wasn't the most informed of what really makes me happy as an adult. So that might change, but at least giving them a chance. And that it is integrated with people without disabilities to the greatest extent possible, so that they can truly engage with friendships and with the things that matter to them. We know that this is exactly what our families want from this study that I cited here. And so this is what I said. It can be paid or unpaid too. So it doesn't have to be paid, although paid is the number one way to make sure students get employment after high school. It's also about where it is, and it doesn't matter, and it doesn't matter how many hours. So please know that's available. So the latest time that a parent could choose their diploma officially is just before the student leaves. But unofficially, you have to have time to plan, right? So that's part of why it's so important we have students engaged in academics as long as possible, because that's where the credits are earned. So if we too quickly shift off of that, now we're having to recoup if we decide that's most appropriate. So if you work through it in the order I'm giving you, you're less likely to harm potential pathways as well. And I think that's really important. But you can shift to make that decision all along the way. I've had some schools right now who are like, you know what, we thought the student was going to earn this one diploma by spring, but they didn't. But they were engaged in like work-based learning and career and technical education, some on-school work. They were able to demonstrate the skills in the schema. So they're going to earn the occupational diploma this spring, but maybe they were trying to earn the AAD. They're just going to keep trying because they get to stay through age 21. So really you have a lot of flexibility in when you make that decision. The only time IDA services end is when the regular education diploma is earned. So as soon as that student walks across that stage and gets that fancy piece of paper, IDA services end. Now, I will say there's a few schools where, because the district's so large, Metro is one of them, Knoxville, the district's so large, they have so few places for graduation ceremonies that sometimes kids end up going back to school for a few days after graduation. Obviously, they'll still get support if the school is in that situation, but really they're done when they're done. And then the last question I saw is this specific to state? Yep, this is Tennessee policy. This is all Tennessee. Great questions. I think I got the questions so far. So what are the options if the student earns the occupational diploma? It's really about occupation. Now, if a job says it requires a high school diploma, some employers are now like, we don't really have to change the policy. The occupational diploma counts as a diploma, and they're counting it, but not all employers. And we don't have any say over that, right? Employers' HR policies is their own. It is not under our purview, even if we sometimes wish it was. So as far as obtaining a job, it's going to depend on the work, obviously. I encourage everybody to advocate with the human resources or with the employer for the skills they have. The skills, knowledge, and experience mastery assessment is specifically designed to also be a portfolio the student can take when they're having that conversation. So that it really is about obtaining a job. There are job readiness programs and things through our adult services, such as VR, DID, ECF, that also will tell them this is what the student is ready to do so that they can start getting them engaged in employment in a more proactive way. So that's what that's for. And I will also try and get you the link to where the schema is. It is on our Tennessee Department of Education website. It is on our secondary transition page, but I will try and get that for you as well. So just a summary of where we were. As far as credits, there's not a credit requirement for the occupational diploma. So you get a lot of flexibility in that junior and senior year of what classes make the most sense for career readiness. As far as the civics attest is not required because this will not count in the graduation rate. So occupational diploma doesn't count in the school graduation rate, which is fine. It's not one of the academic diplomas, but it's still very worth getting for students for whom it's the most appropriate. And we strongly encourage that for our schools. As far as ACT, not required. If the student's like, I want to take the ACT, I don't know who does that, but if they want to volunteer for the ACT, they should absolutely be allowed, and the state pays for all of our students to take the ACT. Theirs would be free as well. And then, as I said, their only assessment is the skills, knowledge, and experience mastery assessment, lovingly referred to as the schema. Final diploma, the special education diploma. So years ago, really not that long ago, just 8 years ago in the state, you either earned the regular diploma or the special education diploma, which meant you got a diploma or you didn't, is how people saw it. And the problem was for our employers, our inclusive higher education programs, our project search, our adult wraparound services through VOC Rehab, DID, ECF Choices, all of those, they didn't know anything about that student because any student who couldn't earn the regular diploma got a special ed diploma. They had no idea what they needed. And so that just didn't inform anybody. One of the reasons I'm so excited we have 4 diplomas is because it gives back value to the special education diploma in that when a student earns it, we know exactly who they are and all that they've accomplished. The special education diploma is reserved for our students for whom they are the most significantly impacted. They're not able to earn that regular diploma. They're not able to earn the AAD diploma. They're not able to earn the occupational diploma, but these are students that humble me every day. These are our bravest individuals in our communities. These are the students that get up and maybe they're not able to get out of bed on their own. They're not able to get themselves cleaned up and dressed. They're not able to get themselves fed sometimes. They're not able to put together their own backpacks. They're in a bus that picks them up door to door, and they're not able to do that on their own. They get to school and people say, good morning, how are you? And they're often not able to answer, but they come to school every single day ready to try. I frankly just don't have the fortitude or strength that these individuals have. And so I absolutely celebrate them and all that they accomplish. Now, certainly this is also an option if, like I said, some students, they might take longer than 4 years. This might be where they are on that graduation day with their senior class, and they can certainly earn it there. But they'll continue to go on and earn one of the others as well. But it gives back power. It also tells our adult service agencies, this is a student for whom they're going to need more supports. So already they know who to send, how to plan. Having the right diploma informs everybody. It informs your adult services, your families, and your student. And that's why I'm so passionate. But the special education diploma requirements are that the student is receiving benefit from their IEP and attendance, and that they are not able to earn one of our other 3 diplomas at the time of award. Because again, I think it's very important all students participate in that graduation ceremony at the end of 4 years. You'll notice that these are the same requirements in all of our special education diplomas. It is really, really important to us that the IEP does not override your pathway to adulthood, and your pathway to adulthood does not override your IEP. And so that's in all of ours, and also that they be public school students. So that's important to know. The student must be in a public school for this to be available, because it's the only place where you get IEP. Unless your IEP has placed you in a private school and that's being funded by the schools. That's just a rare, we have only a handful of those students in Tennessee right now, but certainly that applies. So really and truly, the most common reasons, like I said, is that the student hasn't earned one of the others prior to age 22, or that they haven't earned it prior to their senior year. And just that summary, there's no coursework or requirements for this. It's not required for them to take the civics assessment. Of course, any kid that wants to take extra tests, they should get to. And same for ACT, and then there's no additional requirements. So that is a quick summary. I'm going to skip out of the scenarios. Sorry, I didn't mean to leave that here. And were there any other questions for me?
Well, I think you answered the three that we saw listed there. So I was going to ask about, I don't look at them like step downs, but if you go lateral, I guess. So if you know a student does not qualify for regular, then would your first choice be alternate academic?
Yes.
And then let's say once they reach the end of 10th grade and you see that is not working, could you then transition to occupational?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's what I was.
And we've even had students where it's like, they've been really like, oh, I don't know that the alternate academic diploma is appropriate either. Academics is really difficult. They struggle with transitioning schools. There's just been a lot going on. So maybe they're like, well, the student's most appropriate pathway might be the special ed diploma. And then they get halfway through 9th grade and they're like, this transition went so much better than we thought. I think maybe they are ready for the alternate academic diploma. And you shift to that. And then, I don't know, I feel like maybe it really was the occupational. You can shift again. So there's nothing that decides policy-wise how many times you're making that decision. The thing, of course, is that credit accumulation. So I think it's important for any student, though, even if they're on the special education diploma pathway, there's no credits required. And so people like to focus on what would be those life skills for those students. The number one life skill we can give anyone at all, is, of course, communication. And then it's literacy, which is part of communication. So continue those services, continue that education, continue those classes, because everybody's gaining from them. There's no harm in being taught. So the more we continue to strive and thrive, the more students have opportunities to say, you know what, I think I'm ready for a new challenge, and go that way.
So with the regular diploma and the alternate academic diploma, having those 22 credits required, does that include successfully passing the end of course exams?
Question. So when you're earning a credit, it's around how you're demonstrating your learning towards standards. Now, standards aren't IEP goals. So IEP goals, we expect the student to get it, right? We expect them to master it and to be able to say done. Standards aren't that way. Standards are really setting kind of a bar of learning that nobody ever fully obtains, right? I'm super old and I'm still learning something every day. So the standards is really just how we as teachers expand our world and expand the thinking of students. So that's important to know, in that they don't just show a level of mastery, they have to show learning. In that, the EOCs are required as part of school accountability. When students take an EOC, that should be considered in their grade, but it shouldn't really decide whether or not you get a credit. It's not enough value to fail a kid and prevent them from getting credit. The same for alternate assessment. So alternate assessment, if a student's taking the alternate assessment, the truth is right now we don't get those scores back in time to be included in the grade. So it's not going to impact their grade at all anyway. So ultimately earning the credit is about how you are demonstrating learning in that class and the grades you've earned.
And I know you said you have your first cohort of alternate academic diplomas coming out. Does every school offer all 4 types of diplomas, or only certain schools offer different programs?
Excellent question. If you are a public school in Tennessee, it is expected you are making available all 4 diplomas, depending on what's the most appropriate pathway for the student.
Okay. All right.
Excellent question.
Did we have any additional questions that came in, Mr. Waller or Mr. Morris? Were there any additional questions?
I didn't see any additional questions.
Thank you.
Well, I will send you this PowerPoint, as I said. I will also send you the direct link to our low incidence webpage that includes graduation options, and it includes links to a lot of resources and guidances. It also has that big summary chart. So that way, if you want to continue to dig in and learn more about the diplomas, you'll be able to see that. One of the things there is a diploma decision guide. So it's a way to just kind of even talk through it. There's even like a little bit of a flow chart to help talk through it and think through what's really most appropriate and still challenging. And just remember that the only real time limit for students is that they have to complete prior to aging out, which is at the end of the year in which they turn 22, right?
Okay.
So it's through age 21 or until they get their regular diploma. So if a student needs a little longer, even if they're going for that regular diploma, but you're like, 4 years is going to be tough, they're going to need more time, they do have the right to take longer and earn that diploma.
Okay. Thank you so much, Allison. You have helped me a lot. I feel more confident about the decision I personally have to make, especially looking at the chart and the difference between those. It gave me a lot of insight on what is available even to my own son. So I thank you just for giving your time today to present the information to us. We are so grateful to have you today. And we will be keeping in touch. As a matter of fact, I'll be emailing you as soon as this is over. I want to go back. Let's see. I'm going to go back to our PowerPoint slide. Can you all see that? I think. Mr. Moore?
I can.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I see it. Yep.
Okay, so we are going to go, we had our questions. I also want to mention on sale now on Amazon, I have a book called For the Love of IEPs, and all it is a planner for parents like me. So you can check off things that were mentioned in the IEP meeting. You can also write down goals that your child or student may be working on and whether they've mastered that goal or whether it's in progress. So you can just search on Amazon for the Love of IEPs. And it's a small planner. So you have that documentation for yourself, including what the school gives to you, that you can go back and look on just to see how far your own child has come through the process. And again, we thank you for your support. Make sure you follow us on all of our social media handles. We will be having more informative sessions. If there is a topic that is on your mind and you need more information, please feel free to reach out to us on any of the social media. You can inbox me personally on Facebook, on my personal page, or the Happy Joseph's Journey page, and we will try and find a presenter that can get you that accurate, true information where you can make better decisions for you and your family. Ms. Gall, thank you again so much for being here today. Thank you all board members of Joseph's Journey that's on the Zoom side and the YouTube side. So we will leave this recording up in case you want to go back, in case you want to share it with families that need this information. We thank you so much, and you all have a great day.